Amen. I invite you to please be seated. Welcome and blessings today. Today is a day of miracles. Every day is a day of miracles. And you know, today's gospel story sort of makes my head spin. It spins with thoughts, it spins with images of Christ's first mega church potluck supper. It's referenced as a miracle, a feeding miracle of 5,000 families. But in reality, I regard it as a sharing miracle. In order to better understand the context of today's gospel, let me share what went on in the first 12 verses of Matthew 14, the verses that we did not hear. Herod was in the picture. He was not very pleased with John the Baptist because the prophet, John, had told Herod what Herod didn't want to hear. That he should cease and desist courting his brother's wife. But as fate would have it, on the occasion of Herod's birthday, his girlfriend's daughter was going to offer a dance in honor of his birthday. And so Herod was very pleased. It was a phenomenal dance. And he promised the young girl anything she wanted in exchange for such a beautiful gift. Herodias is the mother of the daughter, had asked the daughter secretly to request the head of John the Baptist, and Herod fulfilled his oath. The setting for today's gospel places Jesus receiving that news that his cousin had been assassinated by Herod. Jesus withdrew in a boat to mourn. He went to a deserted place, or so he thought. But his time of solitude didn't last very long because the people who probably also knew what was going on with John followed him and found him. What did the Son of God do when the children of God sought him out regardless of his own pain, his own sadness, or his wish to be alone? He turned to them and loved them. I imagine that Jesus' response is especially familiar to those of you with children under your care, whether you're a parent or a caregiver. When a child needs you, no matter what your day was like at the office, no matter how you feel, or what previous plans you've made, you give them what they need. They need their favorite dish, you cook it. They need to talk, you sit down for a chat. They need to know you love them. You give them your love and attention. A walk outside, a games night with the family, something. Each of you is a child of someone. You get what I mean. Jesus did the same thing. The gospel story frames that love as compassion. Jesus had compassion for them. And so there were sick people. He cured them. There were people needing wise words. He spoke to them. He provided what I call the ministry of presence. Being present with the other. And that is the setting for this massive Eucharistic feast that I call that first megachurch potluck supper. The disciples themselves were probably getting hungry, and they quickly realized that the mass of people around them were probably hungry too. Jesus would get the crowd moving so that they could find food in the surrounding villages, thought the disciples. But their master and friend did something completely unexpected. a first for his disciples and a precursor for the miracle of abundant sharing. Instead of saying, "Chill out, guys, I got this one," he said, "Guys," they were all guys, or so we think, "you give the people something to eat. You set the example. Empty your pockets. Open those bags. What do you have?" Silence. "What do you need?" "How in God's name are we going to find a supermarket down the road? Wegmans isn't the next town over." How would we bring the food back even if we found it? Not my problem. Jesus said, "Bring what you have here to me. Bring it here." And you know the rest of that story of the miracle of the feeding of 5,000. Today's gospel is a two-part miracle, though. It wasn't only that 5 loaves and 2 fish were multiplied with leftovers remaining. It was that thousands of people, some who undoubtedly packed food to tide them over while they hung out with Jesus for the day, would have with them. So the second miracle was that the people shared what they had with everyone else. They didn't hoard it. They didn't say, "Ooh, if I give to them, what is my family going to eat?" No. They saw what was going on, and they followed suit. There was no scarcity in this story. There was abundance. There was abundance. We're part of a community and a society where this also happens. Many of you bring food here for Loudon Interfaith Relief. As a matter of fact, today a family will give you some plastic bags to take home to remind you to bring that food next week. Many of you bring and pack Backpack Buddies food. Eileen is here, our Backpack Buddies ministry lead. For school children who live in low-income households and need food on the weekends. Many of you give clothing so that others can reuse them. I used to minister in a socioeconomically poor community, as it was called or referred to. And it was so moving for me to witness how so many people would come bringing whatever they had each time the church said, "We need things to help the poor." Bags of groceries would show up. Clothing would show up. Toys would show up. And this wasn't just a one-time thing. It doesn't matter how much you have here. It's what you have here when you're thinking of Christ's abundance. And it happens. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. A new miracle in another form will take place today. From our abundance, from our compassion, from our love, from all that God gives us as the community of St. Gabriel's, we will officially be the first Episcopal bilingual congregation in Loudoun County. At 1 o'clock today, we'll have a Spanish language service. Y'all, we're going to be bilingual. That's my imitation of a southern drawl. Forgive me. I'm from the deep south. I'm from Puerto Rico. So. At 1 p.m., I will celebrate our first Spanish language service, to which all are invited. You don't need to speak Spanish to be there. Pretend it's an opera. Sit back, take it in. The Spirit will move you. And why do I think this is a miracle? Because like the gospel story, there are people out there, right here, who are different, but who seek the same love of Christ that you do in worship and community. What makes us the same? That we are all God's children. seeking to thank God for God's abundance, seeking to thank God for that love, even if we feel that we don't deserve it. Seeking to thank God for His compassion and that incredible devotion that God has for each one of us. We could say, let them go to St. John's, or Riverside Presbyterian, or Christ the Redeemer in Sterling, or to the local Baptist or Pentecostal church. But no, Jesus said, bring them here, to me. And we're saying the same thing. Go where you want, but if we offer something that appeals, come here. And we have said the same thing. Bring them here. In today's gospel, the body of the faithful assembled around Jesus in worship, complete with Eucharist, are doing just that. Inviting, bringing, sharing the abundance. Rather than do the work Himself, Jesus told His disciples to get to work. I've had a similar opportunity. You've had a similar opportunity. Many of you have been called on to help this mission church become a mission to a broader community. There are people here today who responded to the invitation to do more, to serve more, to share more of the limited time that you have. Just earlier this week, some people went to the land to make sure that the grass was cut. Later this week, some people went to clean off the altar. Today, some people have packed bags to bring communion. It's a miracle. It might not seem that way to you, but it is a miracle. We're responding to Christ's call to love and serve our neighbors as ourselves, and to share the abundant grace that St. Gabriel's has to offer. We're doing that miracle today. There may be people who don't know us that say, what does St. Gabriel's have to give? Their cupboard is bare. 5 loaves, 2 fishes. And we say, bring them here. We will share the abundant grace we've been given, and then some. There will be leftovers. I can guarantee that. No more hunger, spiritual or otherwise. Our power comes from the capacity that we have, inspired by word and sacrament, to stand outside of ourselves and to see beyond ourselves with a Christ-full perspective. We are being freed of the bonds of scarcity and liberated to see beyond problems, obstacles, fears, disappointments, sadness, anger, whatever. Because we are the children of God, doing the acts of God.